This is season number 19 of Bass Talk Live with Matt Pengrack. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Aftco, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Pro Guide Batteries, Beatdown Outdoors, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, and Omnia Fishing. Hit them with the hook, Jeffries.
PTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. We got a good one today. I think I mentioned it like 6 or 7 months ago that I wanted to get this guy on the show. We're talking about Todd Kline from San Clemente, California, just to talk about kind of his former life. And he's talked a little bit about, well, in the meantime, before I got him on the show, he went out and he won a Toyota Series. And then he did it making an adjustment that was near and dear to my heart. He put up the power fishing stuff and he picked up the egg beater. 7'6" rod, 5-pound test, and a little bitty bait. And he whooped everybody in the Toyota Series on Lake Havasu with a stacked field, like 85 boats in that thing. But then you start going down the list and seeing the names, you know, Dean Rojas's and Nick Salvucci's and things like that. And you're like, okay, guy knows what he's doing. So we're going to get Todd Kline on. And I was afraid this was going to happen since we've been doing the show. Like, obviously, we're in Central Time here in Shawnee, Oklahoma. East Coast is easy because it's an hour later, like, you know, and you get Ken Duke and stuff on and have a leisurely breakfast bowl and hop on the show. But then you get into like a mountain and West Coast time, and there's like a 2-hour difference. So it is 6:30 in the morning where Mr. Todd Kline is. And when I sent him the message to jump on, it said Todd's notifications are silenced. And I was like, we have a time differential here. So I was unaware, but there's like a little thing when the notifications are silenced, it can say like notify anyway. So I like hit it, and then my text jumped, and then all of a sudden his notifications went off. And then a groggy Todd Kline jumped on behind stage. So we'll give him a second to settle down, but he's here. We're going to talk about that. Before we get into it, I do want to mention BPT going on, the 5-fish limit. I think it's a lot more relatable as far as, you know, how the guys did, what kind of days they had as far as fishing for the 5 biggest. Today is the second day of qualifying for Group A, so we will talk about more as the week goes on. Also, off day for the Bassmaster Elite Series before the 2023 season kicks off on Lake Okeechobee. And you know, if you've listened to the show for any time, you know there's 2 big parts of BTL that are competing. My roommates for the Opens for the last couple years, and John Sokup and Brad Hallman, both made the Elite Series. Brad returning to the Elite Series for the first time in like a decade. John made it, not surprisingly, in his first year of really trying. But here's what I want to do. I know in the Opens, when I have a good day or a tough day, I love the comments and the DMs from the listeners and the viewers. Like, I may not respond to all of them, but I read them. It warms my heart. I greatly appreciate the support and the feedback. So if you're listening to this and it's Wednesday, it's their off day, and you're a BTL listener and you've listened to John come on the show and Brad come in and do all the stuff that he has, I want to flood their DMs with good luck, go get them, attaboys, positive comments on the day off. Facebook, Instagram, Bradley Hallman, John Sokup Fishing. Get in there, let them know that the BTL Nation is rooting for them as they kick off their Elite Series season tomorrow. Also, kind of along the lines of the Elite Series, if you haven't had a chance yet, it kind of blew up last night. Head over to Andrew Upshaw's YouTube channel. The Open Pros Pick'em Show is up with myself, Todd Castledine. I feel like he's a little arrogant after 2 years of winning the league. I feel like it's straight luck. Anyway, you kind of have to watch that show. And then a new addition to it, which I thought is awesome, is a guy who's won over $2 million in this game. I think over $2.5 million when you combine everything. And that's Ish Monroe. Ish Monroe jumped on to provide some insight. So us 4, go check that out. Andrews does a great job. A great job with that. All right, let's get to today's guest from California and Toyota Series champion. Now, you've been called that a lot on the co-angler side, but this is the first time you can be called a Toyota Series champion from the front of the boat. Todd Kline, thanks for jumping on BTL. Super pumped for this show.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me on. And slowly but surely, I'll wake up here.
Yeah. Now, do you do fantasy fishing?
No, I don't. I've done fantasy football for years.
See, I've never done fantasy football, but I do the fantasy fishing. I think you have to be, to really get into the fantasy fishing, I think you have to be a true nerd, a true bass fishing dork to really get into it.
I take that back. Actually, right when it came out with FLW back in the day, I did it a little bit. I think I might have done like 2 or 3 different events. But yeah, my dad actually, back in the day, I know he won like a $500 gift card to Walmart and something else, but yeah, he was into it big time.
Really? I see. I've won a little bit over the years, but I've got like, a kind of secret high money leagues. And then one year, I can't believe I'm admitting this live. So like 5 or 6 years ago, I created a secret league with like 3 other people, and we tried to guess the 5 lowest. So if you had a guy who hit, that was bad. So you wanted everybody to just tank.
Yeah.
So it was reversed. So like the E group was, like the A group, and the A group was the E group then. We only did that 1 year, and then it didn't really take off that big. So, but anyway, thanks for jumping on. Like I said, I told that little story beforehand, but I think, are we doing away with daylight savings time next year? Do I remember that correctly?
I don't know. They keep talking about it. I wish they would,
All right, but we still have the time zones, so we're all good.
Yeah.
All right, little background. I think there are certain tournaments that are just intriguing. Like I think you can have Toyota Series or Opens or something that go down, and it's kind of as expected, and the guys you expect, and there's nothing that really sticks out. Great quality wins, still very viable, but every once in a while, one of these kind of piques my interest. And your Toyota Series win on Havasu, was it at the beginning of the month here, a couple weeks ago now?
Yeah, it was just a couple weeks ago.
Piqued my interest. Talk a little bit, just right off the hopper, about what it was like, your first win against that field, and to kick the year off on Lake Havasu.
So I love Lake Havasu, Matt. It's one of my favorite fisheries. I love the fact, just that desert is gorgeous, right? So I enjoy just soaking that up while I'm out there. I don't get to catch smallmouth a lot where I live. We've got one lake, and you literally can go a couple years without catching one. There's just not many in there. So I like the diversity of that lake. I like the whole landscape out there. But more importantly, I put a lot of time in over the last handful of years, and really trying to learn and understand that lake. The lake out there has a ton of man-made structure in it. And the locals know that place like the back of their hand, even though there's tons, it's just like your lakes. There's one tree, there's one dock pylon or whatever it is that always holds big ones. And it's the same thing out there. And so you try and, dial into the intricacies out there. And so slowly but surely, I've been able to I think, I've got a pretty good understanding of the smallmouth. But this time of year when we were out there, it's early, and the water's cold. It's like 52, and it might not sound cold for the guys back east, but for us, that's cold. And, so I was trying to dial in on the brown ones. And, felt pretty good. It's kind of the same thing every year about that time of year. You're going to get 5 or 6 bites, 5-pound test. Your odds are not good to land all of them. But if you get them in, you're going to be in that top 10 conversation. And if you crack them good, you could be leading. Well, we had a windy day, and I told myself, 95% of the guys aren't going. I don't want to go either, but I need to. Keep the spinning rod in the box. If you can find one spot, one bait, then you're better off than where you are right now. So I did that day, and actually, found my primary bite, and was, super excited. Ended up just going around, not sticking fish, and going around and making waypoints. And then we had one more day of practice, and I just continued to make waypoints, and it paid off.
So you found what you would consider the winning fish on a day that was very tempting to say, screw this, I'm staying in. There's no boats in the parking lot. This isn't worth it.
Yeah, 100%. And the interesting thing is, I'm not going to say the dude's name, but, the consensus from a lot of people on a day like that is it's worthless, right? It's a completely worthless day. So I'm coming back, and, I'm not talking about anything that I did out there. I just said, man, thank God to be off the water, man. What a nightmare out there, right? And the individual tells me, dude, what were you doing out there? That is an absolute waste of time. Even if you found something today, it's not gonna, carry over. It was, that's a waste. Why would you go out there? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I'm thinking to myself, no, you're not.
Oh, dude, that's such a good lesson. Because, fishing the opens and doing that, you always have that day, especially if you've got 3 or 4 practice days, and you can really convince yourself that it's not worth it. I've done it, dude. I've done it, Todd. I've convinced myself that it's not worth it, or I'll just stay in the marina area or do something dumb. But that's a good lesson there.
I've had multiple times, Matt, that's on those days I have found something, because what it'll do also is it's going to put us in spots where we normally would not go to avoid the wind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was one time at Meade, not to get sidetracked, but there was one time at Meade we were practicing for the U.S. Open, and it put me into this spot behind this giant bluff. And as I shut the motor down and I'm idling up to kind of get out of the elements, all of a sudden I hear, a blow up, and I look over and here's a shad out in 55 foot of water and big smallmouth trying to crush it.
Oh, no way.
Holy smokes. So I pick up my topwater that had no hooks on it. Sure enough, just crushes it. Long story short, that area, after I've gone back and kind of, done a little research on it, has boulders that are in like 35 foot of water, but the water's so clear, those smallmouth will come up off of it. I would have never found that spot if I wasn't out there on that windy day trying to avoid those elements.
That's good stuff. Another interesting element about this event that you won is you had a gargantuan lead going into the final day. Now, obviously you can do mid-20s bags at Havasu, but the way the tournament was going, a 7-pound lead, like, I don't know how else to say it, but you would have had to have choked not to win.
Yeah.
And you had to make some decisions on the final day because it was not all sunshine and unicorns on the final day of that event.
Yeah. So first thing in the morning on that day. And for me, that I've been in that same exact position out there leading going into the final day. Mike Williams, who's like the local stick right behind me. It was much closer than this one. And on that third day, it was overcast at that particular event. Same time of year, I was chasing the smallmouth. Out here, smallmouth do not like the overcast. I got a couple of them, but then I had to literally salvage where I knew I could go get some small largemouth on a square bill that were like £1.25, just to make sure I got a 5-fish limit. And he ended up beating me, right? So, here I am, you're laying in bed the night before, day 2, you got a 7-pound lead, but that gorilla is behind you.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, dude, don't do it again, And so we launch on that third day. Everything feels good. As a tournament angler, you just, certain songs feel good, sunrise, the national anthem, just everything feels so much better. And run to my first spot, got a couple of boats following me, got the MLF camera boat following me, which was a first for me, which, a little bit nervous, but super, super cool as well.
Mm-hmm.
And first spot, first cast, doop, and set the hook, miss them. And I'm like, that's it. No worries. They're eating, And so I was pretty excited about that. 2 hours later, hadn't had a sniff. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, you need to figure something out real quick. And the good thing was, before that windy day, Matt, like I said, I had a pretty good, at the time it was plan A. Well, now it was plan B to go chase the smallmouth. And so I run to, one of my spots for smallmouth, and probably second or third cast, catch about a 3.5. And, super excited. 2 seconds later, my co-angler, who ended up winning the co-angler side, Todd Woods, goes net. And I look back and he's got like a 4.5, and I'm like, oh gosh.
Listen, you have to pause this story because you can't gloss this over. So your co-angler was not Todd Woods. Your co-angler was Big Daddy Todd Woods, West Coast legend who has won multiple events, is always a contender, and one of the best guys out on the West Coast. Like, everybody knows him. And he decided to hop into this event as a co-angler. And then you had him on the final day as your co-angler. So you not only have this adversity, but you have one of the best guys going, who's been going for 2+ decades behind you. So, dude, if I leave the door cracked open here, he's gonna blow it open for me, and I'm gonna be netting his giants all day. Just another little element to go into that day.
So So on that, Matt, yeah, 100%. The dude has, done very well for himself out here. I didn't ask questions why he was fishing from the back. I just knew he was in the back of my boat, and
Totally legal.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And so, and I've known Todd for a long time. Nice guy, works at Anglers Marine, who I work with for my boats. And in the morning, I'm just thinking to myself, and I think I said it kind of jokingly, but dude, am I going to have, rash on my ears today from your line or what? And he was very, very respectful as far as where he was casting and that type of thing, so I appreciated that. And once you realize that, I think that helped kind of mellow.
Anyway, side track on the story there. So go back. Todd jams a good one.
Yep. So he jams a good one, and as he's bringing it up, and I go to net it, there's 4 with it just as big. Which all that, 2 things. One, it assured me that 1, the smallmouth were chewing, and 2, that there was plenty where we were at. So I net his fish. I had already reeled mine in, and it's sitting on the deck. So I grabbed it, fired it over there, and I'm just about to start my reel, and he's like, "Hey, I need water in the well." So I set my rod down, go walk back to push the button, and something told me, like, look back. And I look back, and my rod's starting to bow. And I'm like, oh, God. I run over there, and I go to reel into it, because I'm fishing 5 pounds, so you can't set. You got to do a reel set. Reel into it. I'm like, big one. And it starts coming up. And as it's coming up, it's real clear water at Lake Havasu. Right before it gets to the surface, probably 3 feet before the surface, makes a hard right turn, and my bait falls out.
Oh.
And so I let a pretty good yell out for the coyotes, and just got right back to it. And, so I that first stop, I got another one out of there, like a 2.5 or something, not big, but, it felt good because, I knew, okay, you're going to salvage the day, you'll be all right. At this point, my mindset is, hey, if I can get 15, Mike's going to have to get 22, which is doable, because we've seen those bags already. And that guy knows that lake like the back of his hand. But, he hadn't had a 22-pound bag yet in that tournament. And you just had to go with, at least you knew where the lowest you could put the bar, and then, kind of how things might settle out. So, jump around. It's pretty slow, though, for the most part, until about noon. It seemed like maybe a light switch went off. Fishing got much better. And the other thing, while I'm chasing these smallmouth, Matt, this time of year, a lot of times on the same structure that you're catching the smallmouth, the largemouth will be staging to come up. And all of a sudden you'll get bit, and you think you got a big smallmouth, and literally you'll catch, a 7-pound largemouth, which I did on day 2. I caught a 7-pounder on the 5-pound test.
On 5-pound test.
Yeah. And literally the cast prior to that, I caught a 4.5.
Holy cow.
So, I had plenty of confidence in this technique, and, fast forward towards the end of the day, fishing one of my spots, the rod starts to load, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting snagged just the way it was all, transitioning. I'm thinking I'm getting snagged. So I just kind of slowly start to just lean a little bit, and all of a sudden it does a big head shake, and I'm like, reel into it. And I'm like, net, big one. Thing comes out of the water. It's a 4.5-pound smallmouth. Lands. I'm like, and Todd says it too. We both said it kind of simultaneously. You get this thing in, it's game over. So I'm fighting. It's pulling drag. Starts to come up again. Same exact thing. Kind of to what happened in the morning. Right before it gets to the surface, turns. Bait comes out. Oh. He doesn't say anything. I don't say anything. I've got a half hour till weigh in, and I literally, I'm thinking to myself, well, we all know when it's your time, it's your time. It's already predetermined anyway. We're just along for the ride. And I was nervous as heck at that point, though, because, I knew I hadn't weighed those fish that day, which I did the days prior. And, in that position, I'm always going to small eye them. I'm not going to big eye them because you don't want to be let down. So in my mind, I've got high 13s. Todd says you've got at least in the 14s. Long story short, I had almost 16. And, when we got to weigh in, I have to wait for 25 co-anglers to go, and then I have to wait for 24 pros to go. And I couldn't get those fish on the scales quick enough, man, because, I knew I'd set myself up in a good place, and I'm just thinking, dude, I hope you didn't drop the ball today, And when I got up there and Alan said, hey, he's telling Mike, he's like, unfortunately, Todd only needs 12. And right then when he said 12, I'm like,
you knew you had it.
I'm like, game over,
So this is what I find interesting, and this is going to be a little bit of a precursor to kind of what we're going to get into later in the show. But in a 2014 article in World Surf League, they did a Q&A with you. I think the article's titled "The Secret Life of Todd Kline." At the time, you were fishing as a co-angler, but after I read that article, it kind of feels like there's some similarity. So you have to remember, this is 8 years ago that you did this. You're fishing as a co-angler, and one of the questions that they asked was, what makes a good competitive fisherman? Do you remember doing that article?
I do. I won't remember like word for word, but as you kind of talk about it, I'll remember.
Yeah, this is fascinating. You said, probably the biggest thing is being mentally strong during a tournament, as you will constantly be challenged during the tournament. This is where many tournaments are won or lost. And, that was 8 years ago. You take your experience through surfing in your former and still kind of current life, and then apply it to that final day at Havasu. And dude, I think that's a cool thing that you recognized it back then, and then you're able to see it through in February on Havasu, through the lost fish, the log times without a bite, everything, that kind of adversity that you went through on that final day.
Yeah, I mean, I had a coach back in the day when I was just getting started as a surfer in Florida. His name was Matt Keckley, and he really taught me the importance of the mental side of things. And then as I got deeper into, surfing and actually, it became a profession, someone turned me onto a book called The Psychology of Winning. And I read that book and, learned a lot from that. And then, aside from what I read in that book, you'll see it firsthand, and next time you're at a tournament, Matt, or, it'll even probably trigger some things now. And for those of you out there listening, when I was surfing those contests back in the day, we would show up at a venue, and in the morning, even in the lead up to it, you'd have a couple of days, but in the morning, for the most part, the conditions you're practicing in are the conditions you're going to have for the day. And multiple times you would see, one individual that would be leap years ahead of everybody else in those conditions. Their board was perfect. Their approach to the wave was perfect. It just seemed like everybody was surfing for second. Well, you see that a lot of times in practice too, whether it's the guy that's trying to win the tournament on his Instagram, 3 days prior, or, it's the doc talk or whatever it is, there's always somebody that's the one that says 100% they're going to win this thing. And one thing I learned is that, there's, as we all know, there's a ton of really good anglers, right? Mm-hmm. But I believe, and I said it then in that article, and I'll say it now, most tournaments are won or lost right between your ears. And what I mean by that is, in practice, there is absolutely no pressure. You're just out there fun fishing, and you'll hear, let's say the guy's name is Billy, and when Billy hears his boat number and the tournament director says, "You're free to go, Billy," immediately Billy's mind starts racing. Do I go north? Do I go south? Shallow, deep? Oh man, it's windier, the wind's changed, everything starts creeping into his mind, and Billy's lost. Day before, Billy's on 22 pounds. Right now, Billy doesn't even know where to go. And I just think, it's easy to talk about. And I think, fortunately for me, I've been able to, at times, just kind of keep everything clear, focused. Just like in life, you have to have a game plan. You have to kind of set out your day in your mind, like, okay, I'm going to, start here and work my way back, or I'm going to start here and work my way down, or whatever it is. But you have to have a game plan. And with that game plan, you do have to adjust. You have to, pay attention to the elements that are out there, make those key adjustments on the fly. But I think the main thing is, it's all about who you hang with too at these tournaments. If you hang with guys that are constantly talking, it's going to creep into your mind. I don't know how to summarize it, Matt, but we all know it. We all hear it. Yeah. The mind is a powerful thing, and it can either win a tournament for you or it can lose it for you real quick.
Dude, we could do a whole show on this. I love this stuff, Todd, because this is something I struggle with between the analytics and playing, quote, money ball and what the smart move is and making decisions. And I've been able to quiet my mind in the opens, but I don't know if I've been able to quiet it because I've tried to take the risk out of it that the reward would be greater. So I'm actually being conservative to quiet my mind and fish more efficiently, or if I need to take more risks. I mean, everyone goes through this, but I want to piggyback on something you said. I think, did Rojas finish like fourth in that event behind you?
I think so. Yeah.
So when I was covering the Elite Series for 10 years, I went to every single Elite Series event, and I roomed with Dean Rojas. So I was a media guy, and Dean would fish. And for a number of those years, it was, we can talk about this off limits. I mean, I'm not an angler. Dave Rush was shooting photographs and working. He's not an angler. And it was just Dean. And everyone was like, wow, Dean's antisocial. Like, doesn't want to hang out, thinks he's better than everyone else. And I've asked him about that because I've become really good friends with him over the years. I'm like, why, and towards the end, I think he rooms with like KJ and Boyd and a bunch of different guys now. But this was like right in the meat of that Elite Series. And he said, dude, he said, I got here doing things my way. You think about his strategy, like the frog, and where does he throw it? Non-traditional places where no one else would ever think to throw a frog, on non-grass lakes and that type of stuff. And he said, I have enough confidence in myself that there's a reason why I've put enough time and sweat equity in, that there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, even if I don't realize that. He said, and that reason is pure. As long as another competitor, as long as outside information that I didn't gather doesn't creep into my brain. And he said, the second that I feel I'm struggling or I have some self-doubt, instead of relying on what I think the best thing to do is, let's just say he rolls up to the dock and someone says, boy, they really started chewing that chatterbait once the frog bite died. Now he said, I can't help that. He said, I've heard that now. He goes, that is going to affect my decision making. And then you extrapolate that out over the rest of practice and the rest of competition. He's like, and now I didn't fish my tournament. I fished that tournament based on something I heard from someone else. So if I insulate myself, if I separate myself from that competition, I fish a pure tournament and I can go home with an 80th place finish, knowing that it was my 80th place finish. And I can also go home with the first place finish, knowing it was my first place finish. And there's probably not going to be anyone around me because it had nothing to do with dock talk. That's what you just described.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that. And I think, again, everybody, I think, says they want to win, but they also, I think, they're into these tournaments for other reasons too.
We're social creatures, man. I mean, we like that is part of it. We need that. We're social creatures.
Yeah. Some dudes want to, stay up all night around the campfire, drink beer, talk story. And that's cool too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, there's nothing bad about that. It's just, that's not why I'm there. I'd rather sit around the campfire and drink beers after, you win. And that was also something I learned, and a friend of mine taught me. And I'm in a different world now, but when I was a teenager at those surf contests, our environment looks a little different, at our tournament or at our contest versus
distractions.
Right?
Is that what we're talking about? Maybe some potential distractions.
You got a lot of young ladies in bikinis, right? And as a teenager, that's top of mind at that point. And my buddy told me, he's like, hey, clear your mind. Don't worry about that right now. Mm-hmm. That girl, they're all going to be watching the awards at the end of this event. If you're holding the trophy, they want to talk to you. And, it's the same thing. Obviously I'm married now and have a young boy, but that's not what I'm out there. But my point is that, you have to understand that, hey, you're either there to win or you're there to just have fun and enjoy your friends. And I try and balance all the above, but when it comes down to the actual tournament, I try and do as much as I can, just, on my own, stay focused and fish,
We've had Matt Steffen on before with his mental coach, Katie Gruber, who actually talked about a system for that. I think she put together a 6-week course for anglers to try to get their mind right. We're talking breathing, positive thoughts, that type of stuff. You did mention that book, The Psychology of Winning. Still available? Still something you would recommend to everybody looking to take the next step?
Yeah, the way I always look at, anything is, you can apply it to whatever it is that you do. If it's tournaments, and for that matter, I believe The Psychology of Winning has helped me just in life in general, and the way you analyze things. And you mentioned breathing. I've recently, and I haven't done it since I got back from that last tournament, and it's killing me. I want to go, but yoga's a big deal, just physically it's a big deal, but it also, you mentioned the breathing side of things and being able to take your mind to a certain place. And some guys will laugh and think it's corny. Hey, that's fine. But, there's a lot of different things, and it's different for each one of us, Matt. What works for me might not work for others, but there's definitely something there, and you have to try and tap into it to just better yourself as an individual and prepare yourself mentally for different challenges in life.
Hopefully I didn't pull up the wrong book. Is it Dr. Dennis Watley? Is that it?
It looks like it. I'm on my phone right now, so
okay.
And I'm still.
It's from 1984.
It's early.
Okay. The Psychology of Winning.
Yeah.
10 qualities of a total winner.
I had it. Sounds right. I had it in the 90s.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's a couple different, it looks like, was it a blue book?
No, it actually, I want to say it had like a white, it looked similar to what you had there.
Okay.
It was a white cover.
That's it.
Cover. I actually have turned because I still do quite a bit of stuff in the surf world. And I've had some of the dads that I used to compete against, ask me to help their kids, in this aspect. And I turned them onto that book as well. Nice.
All right. I want to get into that kind of surfing life related to the bass fishing and life lessons. But before I do, we got to get a little education in here on the cool baits underspin with the 5. Why the 5? And it sounds like you have an entire system with that 7-foot 6-inch rod. The way you load that up. That's the underspin. Are you sponsored by Cool Baits?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I mean, I remember when I fished the U.S. Open, I got them right. Yeah. And then you're like, these things look kind of chunky a little bit. They look a little goofy at first, and then you put like a 2.8 Kitech on like the 1/8 ounce or the smaller one, and you're like,
yep.
Okay, this is the deal, and I am willing to pay $9 for one.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's funny. I listened. I can't remember, a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It would have been probably the day after I won or something. You guys were on, and you guys were going back and forth, and whoever was on with you was like, "Well, could he have caught it on 7-pound? Could he have caught it on 6-pound?" and maybe I could. Shoot, I would love to catch him on 7-pound. It'd be a lot easier process. But, not to get sidetracked here, but for me, and even when I'm guiding here locally, my theory always is you got to get bit before you can get broke off. And if you're hooking the right ones, and you're coming in and you're, in contention, then obviously it's doing something better than the other guys. The other thing that I think that 5-pound, why it is so good on that Cool Baits, Matt, is, if you watch that thing, like you said, whether it's a 2.8 or whatever the trailer is you got on it, that thing does all kinds of wobbling, and the blades under there spinning, even at a slow retrieve. A lot of the baits, they run a double bearing swivel underneath. So 2 of them, right? So it just frees it up that much more. So at the slowest of retrieve, that blade is still undulating underneath there, and that bait's wobbling. And man, I've caught so many big smallmouth and largemouth on that bait that it's crazy. And the other thing is too, if they're higher in the water column, obviously you go a little quicker. And sometimes when they're actually aggressively on the surface, you fire over there and you kind of hold your rod high, and when you burn it, it's going to run true. Whereas other baits tend to do this, they'll want to get up on the side, that Cool Baits will run true. So that bait for me, it's 2 brothers that, are local here in Southern California, Justin and Sean. They make them in their garage still to this day.
No joke.
Yeah. They hand pour them, the whole deal. I came across those early and fostered a relationship with those guys. And those baits are unbelievable. And a lot of guys crush them around here. I'll say on the inshore, they catch a lot of spotted bass and calicos on those things as well.
And then it sounds like the 7.6 rod is key to keeping those. I know you lost a couple on the final day, but you also landed a 7.2 largemouth on the second day. It sounds like that longer. Is it a parabolic bend or a fast action, or what are we?
It is. I don't have one here.
Kind of
I've
like
got
a
bunch of-
crankbait rod almost, where it really
Yeah.
allows
Yeah,
that
so
fish to have a rubber band.
it's got a real fast tip, but it'll come back quite a ways. It's not just on the end, you know. And so I tell my clients, because they always ask, "What is this, man? This is the perfect setup." Because I'll throw the thin Senko on that too. With that 7.6 with that tip, it allows you to cast really far, which is a big deal, especially out west here with the clarity of the water. But then, just as important, or even more important, you have to have that drag set right. And then that tip, because we talked about it, earlier in the show, you get bit, you just want to reel. And as it starts to load, then lean a little bit and then wind. And I'll wind against that drag until that fish makes the first run the other way. So then you know that it got that hook. And then once that happens, as long as your drag's set right and there's nothing really they can get you into, it's just a game of waiting them out, keeping them from jumping, that type of thing. But for me, that is the ultimate setup. It's a rod that Okuma makes. It's a 7.6, as you mentioned. I think it's a medium light.
Oh, wow. It's like a trout rod.
So here it's a kind of an interesting story how I came across that rod. Originally, it was in a walleye series that they did. And I was at a meeting at Okuma. We were, talking about designs and the next season of rods and reels. And on a break, I walked over and was looking at the rack, and I just went like as high as I could to see the taller rods. And I'm like, 7.6, okay, pick it up. And I'm like, oh, this is the jam right here. And I asked my buddy Dave, I'm like, hey Dave, do you mind if I use this thing for bass fishing? He's like, what? And I explained it to him. He goes, no, go ahead, give it a whirl. And lo and behold, here we are 6-7 years later. It's my favorite rod, and it went from Deadeye walleye series to now it's Deadeye Pro. And they just they've changed a couple things with the guides and just kind of made it a little bit better for bass fishing. But that is the ultimate rod for thin Senko and for the light little swim baits and the cool baits underspin.
That's good stuff, Todd. It's very good stuff.
And the crazy part is, Matt, sorry not to go back on it, sound like an infomercial.
No, that's what we're here for.
That rod is under $100 and the reel is like $125. So when I tell clients, because they'll show up sometimes bringing their own stuff and they've got high end crazy stuff and they're like, dude, I'm going to get this thing today. What's it going to cost me? And I tell them, and they're like, stop, seriously, what's it going to cost? And I'm like, that's the price, dude. It's going to cost you all up like $225 for the whole getup. And they're like, oh my gosh, So it's pretty cool. And I like the fact of that, because a lot of clients that I have, aside from guys that are, established anglers, you get a lot of newer, fishermen. And so when you tell them that, it's a great opportunity for them to get into something that's not going to break the bank, but it's perfect for what they're doing,
We have discussions on the value that the professional angler and the pro staffers who get paid have and bring to the brands versus YouTube versus all that. And what I don't think a lot of people see is the stuff that yeah, you're good. You gotta get the dolphins in the background. But what I don't think a lot of people see is the stuff that they get in their hands and say, hey, this is what the rod you throw on the chatterbait. This is what you crank with. They don't see the behind the scenes of how many hundreds of hours KVD has into his crankbait series of rods, or Brett Height has into his bladed jig rod, or Michael Neal has into his spinning rod, or what you have for that light line. Like all that stuff, that's where the real value is. And then the winning of the tournament is the icing on the cake that allows you to highlight it on things like that. But it's that stuff that happens where professional anglers show their value to the companies across the board, whether it be hard baits, soft baits, terminal tackle, or rods and reels. Yeah, no, it's, it feels good, especially, Matt, working with the different brands, some of them, there's a relationship there, but there's not really a relationship there. Mm-hmm. There's others where it's like, calling a family member almost, or they're calling you to congratulate you immediately. And, that's what it's all about. It's always cool when, you can foster those relationships. They'll listen to you when you give them feedback. They'll make those adjustments. And it's just, like we're talking about now, when you 100% use the equipment, believe in the equipment, it's authentic. And so when you have those conversations with people, it's not just, an infomercial or something you're trying to sell someone on. It's actually coming from the heart. It's like, dude,
I'm trying to hook you up with literally the best setup for this, application or this bait for these elements. And when you believe in something, it's a win-win for all parties,
It's good stuff. It is February 15th, talking with California Toyota Series champion Todd Kline on BTL. We're going to stay in the water, but we're going to go from a bass boat to a board when we come back after this. We'll be back after these messages.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top 100, Strike King.
Hey guys, Gerald Swindle representing the AFCO Hydronaut. This is the jacket I love wearing when times is tough, and I'm talking about the weather, not the fishing. The jacket, what I like, I got a double cup right here. I can seal up the bottom of my jacket because when you're fishing, you're holding your arms up. You're bad about getting water, it runs downhill. Everything bends good. I'm long arm. Look, it fits very comfortable. My arms is flexible. I've got the speed hood on, pouring down rain. I can get everything zipped up. One thing they did is they made plenty of pocket space. If you ain't got enough pockets in the Hydronaut rain suit, you just got too much stuff. From the water membrane, that's 30K, baby. 30 times the reason you ain't gonna get wet. Super warm. If it's cold in the wintertime, you put on your Hydronaut, you're gonna be a much more comfortable person. If you don't want to just look sexy at Dairy Queen, wear your Hydronaut. We got it from small to 5X. Most rain gear does not come in that many sizes. You got waist adjusting straps. We can make it fit you. No matter what the environment is, we want you to be comfortable. We want you to be dry. You gotta check it out. It ain't gonna let you down.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Wednesday, almost already through another week. And I do want to mention before we get back to our guest, Todd Kline, here. So we had Matt Looney from Pro Guide Batteries in studio a couple weeks ago, and he called and he said that the viewer feedback and response from the Pro Guide Battery episode, people who reached out to him, people who used the BTL 10% off code on Pro Guide batteries. It's interesting. We had a little segment there before we went about adding value to your sponsors and working on things. Big shout out to the BTL community. He called and he's like, best sponsorship deal we've ever done was with BTL. And that's how it works in coordination. Get content from them, work. I learn more about how my system sets up. Everyone learns more about it. And in return, company that's been around for over 45 years, get some business out of it. And it's I believe, Todd, the word is a symbiotic relationship.
Facts. Yeah, that's good stuff, Matt. Always good when we can, scratch the back of our sponsors and vice versa. You know what I mean? That's like you said, that's when it's symbiotic and everybody's high-fiving at the end of the year and you're renewing your deal.
All right. Let's do a truncated version of how you ended up in the surf world. Let me see if I've got this right. Started out, you grew up in Florida, or you're raised in Florida. Everyone thinks of you as a California guy, but you're in Florida. You got introduced to surfing. One thing led to another. At 18, you turned pro. And then at 21, somewhere between there, you moved out to California, and that is your one and only job was surfing on the ASP qualification series.
Yeah. Yep. So
was that right? Did I seriously get that right?
That's facts. Yeah, that's facts.
Wow. I'm impressed with myself.
I was born and raised down in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, and as a youth, I would come home from school, grab my bike, grab literally like a bag of culprit worms, one bag of bullet weights, and some hooks, and go somewhere, throw my bike in the bushes, start walking, and just fish till sunset, come home, right? That was almost daily. As about 13, 14, started surfing, really got into it, started to enter some of the local contests, started to have some success, and loved the competitive side of things. I played sports as well as a kid. Loved football, but never grew. Still hoping I will someday, but I don't think that's going to happen. And so I had that competitive drive, and I found it in surfing. And then, I was making a little bit of money, as a profession at, 18, 19, 20 there in Florida. And a friend of mine was home for Christmas. He was going to San Diego State, and, he asked me, he's like, dude, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to surf. He's like, well, if this is what you really want to do, then, come to California, come stay at my place. I've got an extra room. He rented it to me for like $300 a month, knowing that I wasn't going to be around anyway, because I'd be traveling a lot. And he's like, you already know, but that's where the industry is. That's where all the media is. That's where all the companies are. It's where all the photographers are. He's like, if you want to do it, go 100%, give it a year or two and see where you sit. And so literally, Matt, like 3 days later, he was home for Christmas. I loaded up I forget what year it was, but my Toyota Tercel, put all my boards inside, put all my, whatever I owned at that time, and drove across country, and have been here ever since.
Wow. So you basically did the reverse of what people do in fishing, where they leave California and pack up and move to Alabama. You left the East Coast and packed up and moved to.
Yeah.
So
and then the crazy part was, I had that passion for fishing, but when I moved here, it's the desert. So it was pre-internet, and I just assumed I couldn't fish anymore. For about 10 years, I did not fish in California. I would still bass fish when I'd go to South Africa. I would still bass fish when I went to, Spain or France or wherever I knew I could fish. But where I lived here in California, I didn't bass fish for 10 years. And I wish I would have got into it earlier, because that was like the heyday out here when, all the lakes were stocking trout and there was just giants everywhere. But I'm just fortunate. I finally realized what we have out here, because there is some unbelievable resources.
Have you seen all those lakes like Dixon and Cascade?
Yeah.
I mean, so I've never personally seen them, but everyone that I talk to is like, dude, you have in your mind what these things look like, because you've seen them in Bassmaster, you've seen them in the articles, you've heard about all this stuff, and they're like, and then when you get to them, you're like, dude, it's a pond.
Yeah.
Is that how it is when you see them?
Well, Dixon, that's a fact. You know what I mean? And you can't take your personal boat. You have to use their rentals or walk the shore. But some of our other lakes, considering what you guys fish, you could still almost say it's a pond, but they're pretty decent sized bodies of water. I mean, you can, I forget acreage wise, but you can do 70 miles per hour for at least a couple of minutes to get to your next spot if you want to.
Okay, couple of minutes.
Yeah, trust me, you're not going to burn much fuel.
That's good. So this also stuck out to me in my research, and I feel like this was either blew me away. So you're professional surfer 21 to 25, and then you get approached by your sponsor. Like, this is legit. This is Quicksilver. This isn't like Jim's board shorts that is sold into. This is Quicksilver. This is the surfing brand, right? What are the main surfing brands? Would it be like I'm bad at like Billabong? Was that one of them?
Yeah. At that time,
O'Neill and Quicksilver.
Yeah, I mean, in a Rip Curl,
Rip Curl.
Yeah, in those early days, but I mean, Quicksilver was at the time the Nike of the NBA, the Nike of the NFL.
So you're in your prime, you have moved your entire life, you're 4 years into your career, and then at 25, you leave professional surfing for an industry job with Quicksilver.
Yeah. So, when I packed up and left Florida, I'm not going to get super detailed, but I feel a lot of people, and fortunately for them, they have what I'll call a safety net. They come from a very solid background as far as their family. There's money there if they need to fall back on it. When, I'll say pushed away from the dock in Florida, it was on me to sail. There was no one else that was going to, there just wasn't that financial means for me to go back to Florida. And so, like anything in life, we talked about a little bit earlier, whether it's fishing or whatever, you have to have a plan. My plan was I'm going to surf professionally. I will make a living. But I know at the end of that, when it starts to wind down, I'm going to be a sales rep for Quicksilver. That was my mindset. I was going to actually go into sales. So Quicksilver was my first apparel company that sponsored me in Florida. I don't know if we'll have time, but that's a pretty funty story in itself. When I first got sponsored.
It's up to you if you have. I don't know what your time is, but dude, we could go 2.5 hours if you wanted to, as long as.
Perfect.
All
so
right.
I'm going to jump into this. So I'm surfing a local contest at Deerfield Beach Pier in South Florida. Anybody from Florida will know where that is. And I get out of the water after one of my heats, and I can't even remember if I won that heat or not. And an individual approaches me and says, "Hey, do you have a clothing sponsor?" And I said, "No." And I was a prankster when I was a kid. So this individual says, "Well, would you be interested in being a part of Quicksilver?" Again, it's the Nike, right?
Yeah. And
so I'm very low key because I'm like, okay, someone's put this dude up to this. This is a joke. And I'm like, yeah, yes, sir, I would. He goes, okay, well, let me get your name and your address, and we'll send you some stuff. So I just go with it. I give it to him, and I walk away, and I go over and I ask him, and I'm like, dude, who is that guy over there? They're like, oh, that's the rep. He's the rep for Quicksilver. Long story short, my first package that comes to my house, I had just gotten a puppy. I get home from school, and I find this package that's tore open. And immediately I find a T-shirt. And I'm looking all over the house for the rest of the stuff. That was my first package, was a T-shirt. So just kind of funny backstory, because one, I thought it was fake. Yeah. Two, my first package is a T-shirt. And so after them being one of my first sponsors, I was with them for probably, I don't know, four years or something. And then I went to another company with a multi-year deal, right? Because at the time, I'm a small fish in a big pond with Quicksilver. And then I was going to another company where I was the big fish in a small pond. Mm-hmm. And it worked out. That was cool. They were running ads of you. You were making more money. And then once that deal ended, they weren't going to renew it. And so I went knocking back on the door at Quicksilver. And I always try and leave on good terms, very appreciative. You never want to burn a bridge. It's the same thing in the fishing world. It's a very small world. Everybody knows everybody. And all it takes is for, one time you did one thing wrong, and it's just, now you've got that stigma, right?
Yep. So
I left on good terms. And so I was knocking on the Quicksilver door, and they kept saying, no, Todd, no, Todd, no, Todd. Finally, at the time it was like the VP of marketing says, okay, come on down, Todd, let's talk. So I go down, I meet with Danny Kwok, was the individual's name. And he's like, here's the deal, Todd. We're going to give you an opportunity to get a foot in the door on the marketing side, and we'll continue to sponsor you. But our vision is we're going to wind down that sponsorship and increase your workload as we see if you're willing to make that adjustment. I said, done deal. Let's go. So, it's early. I'm only 25 years old. I'm sure I still had gas in the tank for the competitive side of things. But as I mentioned, I had no safety net. So I knew that door was not going to open again. If you told that individual, no, I'm not ready to do that, who knows where I'd be today, right? So took that opportunity. I was literally just a grunt. I was the guy that had to get there first thing in the morning at all the different events, set up the tent, bring the cooler with, the drinks for all the competitors, et cetera, et cetera. But because of my work ethic and, drive and passion for the sport as a whole, I started to really progress pretty quickly within the ranks there at Quicksilver. Eventually started running the amateur program, then ran the pro program, took over the whole surf program.
Wow.
And so, you learn, along the way. You already were on the other side negotiating your own deals as a professional surfer. Now you're on the other side of that table, knowing what that individual's thinking, and now you're representing the company and putting those deals together. Long story short, Matt, I was there 16 years. Wow. Eventually, and I was there during the heydays. So we had, some beautiful budgets. We had some great events. I basically got a hands-on education front row right there at Quicksilver. Went from, absolutely just first time in the door to finishing up as a marketing director. And for me, aside from that being a great 16 years of my life, now I'm able to apply a lot of the things I learned to what I'm doing in the fishing world. And that's what's given me the opportunity to actually fish professionally,
There's a lot of life lessons in that story that you just told, Todd. There's a lot of people that I think in the fishing will go, no, I'm a fisherman. I don't want anything. And I understand that because I actually reverse engineered that, started in the industry and now going into the fishing, but understand the value of that and seeing it from the other side, but in a reverse. But did you ever think when you're 25 or something and you're setting those tents up, I can't believe I stopped and now I'm giving the drinks and setting up a tent for what I was doing last year? You never had that kind of disconnect?
Nope. I knew it's I don't know, and again, I think this goes back to what we were talking about, just the power of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You have to just 100% commit and don't look back. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like what you said, Rojas says, if you start to think about this or start to think about that, it's going to dilute your focus and it's going to take you off the path you need to be on. And you're going to lose your direction and drive, and the individuals that you're reporting to at that time are going to see that. And, just like, my position in my seat today as an angler, or your position with your business, or you as an angler, there's 5 guys lined up behind us. Right. And if we don't realize that and motivate ourselves to stay one step ahead of those guys, that's when you're going to start to go the other way. And that was my mindset, will always be my mindset. That's what I hope to employ into my child. And yeah, man, I'm going to have a good time while I'm doing it, but I'm going to stay focused, So
what years were you doing that at Quicksilver? Because this is pretty funny, I think.
It would have been in the 90s, early 2000s, yeah. late 90s. I think I finished up there, 2010. I don't know. I'd have to go. I'm horrible.
So while you're actually running that stuff, I'm wearing Quicksilver every single day for 50% of my wardrobe in Central Illinois and then Oklahoma as a hockey player and bass fisherman that has never touched a surfboard in my life.
Yeah. No, it was
the brand, man.
It was 100%. And for me, Matt, you'd make a cold call to somebody to try, you'd have a vision of something you wanted to do, and you would cold call somebody and you would think, 99% of the people, they're not even going to answer that phone, but because you're calling from Quicksilver, it just made things that much easier. I did a lot of stuff with the Lakers back in the day, did a lot of stuff with the NFL out at the Pro Bowl in Hawaii, and just, super fun stuff, but was also very instrumental in the success for the brand at that time, and it was awesome to be a part of.
Top surfers in the world share the same qualities as the top NBA players in the world and the top bass fishermen in the world and the top NFL guys in the world. Is there all something? I mean, you've been around a lot of guys that are the best in the world. Is there some common thread in your opinion in dealing with all that from behind the scenes that they all have?
Yeah, I believe it's very much the same. Just the landscape's different, and that's what we've kind of touched on throughout this show. But, my mindset coming through surfing, and again, a lot of this you learn on your own, but a lot of it, was a seed was planted or implemented by, colleagues along the way. But, some of the biggest things, and I've mentioned this, in the past, is that control the controllables, right? Because, just like in surfing, there are so many elements that are constantly changing. So make sure you are as prepared as you can be in the lead up to it, and then be willing to adjust. But it's like, again, control the controllables and then adjust on the fly. And a lot of guys, they don't prepare up front to have it as easy as they can, as far as, making sure they got the right stuff rigged up on the deck or whatever it is. But that's one thing that hit home with me early, was control the controllables, because there's so many variables in our sport, and there's a ton of variables in surfing. And you can either, adjust on the fly, or you can let them rattle you, if you're not ready for it.
That 2014 article, when you ask, are there parallels between surfing and fishing, your answer was real interesting. You said, absolutely. Just like surfing, you will see guys with tons of talent, but as soon as the tournament starts, and we talked about this earlier, or a surfer puts on the competition lycra, I'm assuming that's a type of fabric. It's
the jersey.
Okay. So he puts on the jersey. They can't perform at their full potential. Yeah. And that's, we touched on that earlier, a guy is in the lead up to that tournament, crushing them. He's on the winning bite, whatever it is. But as you get closer to that tournament and the start of that tournament, the pressure mounts, right? And the dock talk starts to set in. The elements are changing. It's been a south wind at 80 degrees for a week, and you've been crushing them. Well, guess what? A front just came through. It's going to be north at 20, and water temps dropping 5-10 degrees, whatever it is. That guy, even though he might just have to make a couple minor adjustments to stay on those fish, he just completely loses it. And the top is gone. You just total yard sale.
Lug bolts are off. And the wheels.
How many times have you seen someone that is a little bit of a head case? And I've been that guy before, but I recognize it. I've tried to fix it. But you see him go, Rome. And then 30 minutes later, they're like, Rome. And you turn to your angler and you're like, he's having a bad day. And they're like, what do you mean? You're like, hey, I've just seen him go past 4 times in the last hour. And I mean, it is trimmed out, just trying, walking in there.
Yeah.
O'clock. You're like, oh, there's a lot. Nick, no, we are talking about Quicksilver, the clothing brand, not Quicksilver, the Mercury brand. This is like the West Coast Quicksilver brand. Todd, so I've got down bowling, golf, rodeo, and NASCAR. Did the show with Mark Jeffries for 18 years, and he loved to talk and compare other sports to bass fishing. Those were the 4 that we've come up with that have the most parallels. But it seems like the more research I've done with this, the more I've talked to you, and the more I've looked at it, professional surfing is actually probably the best parallel because of how many uncontrollable circumstances. As far as the lead up to get into it, to get to that top level, is it very comparable to the journey up to the Elite Series or the BPT?
Yeah, again, drawing parallels, you can do it the same way as far as how to qualify for, the top of the surfing world is called the Championship Tour. Whether you want to equate that to the elites or to the Bass Pro Tour, that would be the CT. And then, I competed on the qualifying series, which there's elements within that. So you could say it's, Toyota series, BFLs, opens, those would all be qualifying series. And it's very similar in the fact that the top guys will sometimes jump into the qualifying series. So, you've got big name guys in those qualifying series, which will prepare you for when you do qualify for the big day. But yeah, there's very much similarities and parallels to even the qualification. Another sport, it's not quite as extreme as fishing or surfing as far as how much things change, because the playing field, does adjust a little bit, but is golf, you know what I mean? You're out there amongst the elements as far as wind, and they move the hole on different days. So, there's some similarities to that sport as well. But, surfing for me, and fortunately for me, there was so many parallels. I think it really helped prepare me to get to where I am today, and hopefully well past this. But another thing that really helped me, and I think would help others if they're looking to get into tournaments, maybe they're doing the local team tournament stuff now. That's where I cut my teeth. But it's co-angling. Co-angling, I did it for 5 years. And you're a lot of times, depending on where you're located, you're fishing the same bodies of water that you're going to be fishing as a pro. So whether you draw a top name, whether you draw an absolute, guy that's doing it for the first time from the front, you can always learn. You can learn the things you want to do, and you can learn the things you don't want to do. But it's a great process to forward your mindset and understanding of what it takes to be a professional angler, how to break down water. And I think it's a great stepping stone within our sport for people to engage and start to kind of cut their teeth as a competitive angler.
I saw where you got your first board because you found a ring with a small diamond in it, and you sold that ring for $75 and bought a surfboard. I immediately was like, dude, you can't get into bass fishing for $75. Cost inhibits, but that story really piqued my interest because it seems like
Matt, a couple things. I'm gonna jump in real quick, dude. You are unbelievable. I can just tell you're dynamic in this world. You're going to have great success in the fishing industry. I'm also blown away by your research.
I do a fishing podcast. That's my job. So it's,
I know, but there's a lot of people that do them, and you do it right. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in there, and I'm going to add to that, and you're going to trip out on this. So facts. I was at the beach with my brother and his friend. My brother is 4 years older than me, so I'm with the older boys. They've got surfboards. I'm riding like this old school, almost like a boogie board type thing, but I'm standing up on that and riding that. I'm on the beach, sitting down, relaxing after being in the water, kicking my feet around in the sand. Sure enough, I find a gold ring. I wanted to get a surfboard, as I mentioned, wasn't coming up through a lot of money. So a friend of mine who actually I was with that day, my brother's friend, his family owned a jewelry store. His dad cleaned that ring up for me. My dad bought it from me for $75. He gave it to my mom. I bought my first surfboard, right? That launched me on the surf world. Check this out. So earlier than that, before I got into surfing, my first fishing rod, Matt, I'm at my brother's T-ball. Mind you, he's 4 years older than me, and I'm climbing in a tree, and I look up in the tree. People in Florida, and I think probably other states, they fly kites on fishing rods. This fishing rod must have got away from somebody. I climb to the top of the tree and get my first fishing rod.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So
they use a kite, basically. They hook it up to their bait, and then they use the kite to get it out past the surf to where whatever the shark or whatever is. No.
So yes, they do that now for fishing. Individuals will go to a park, open up their spool, and fly their
they'll
kite.
fly the kite with it and then reel it in. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. So they're just there cruising, flying a kite.
No, you're climbing a tree and find your first fishing rod.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, as I look back and reflect now as an adult, you're like, dude, that's pretty cool things that were like basically put into your life.
But you also had the wherewithal to do something with it, to follow that passion, to not be like, oh, let's go blow it on something, to take it and invest or to use it, or you could have done different things with it. That's where I think the individual personality and the drive came into play. Because there's, I think, a lot of people who have the opportunities who don't take advantage of them, and then they're the guys going, well, this guy just gets lucky. Look at the breaks he had. He found a ring, he found a fishing rod. Well, I think if you're looking for those and you're purpose driven and goal driven, you see that and you're like, here's my in and go, just like it was with Quicksilver and 16-year relationship with that. Yeah, no, true. I'm fortunate, and I don't know how to articulate it all, but I believe in faith and put my life in his hands and pray about it. And, you don't get me wrong. There's plenty of turbulence along the way, but if you have that to lean back on and, instill it in your family,
we're always gonna have bumps in the road, but as long as you got two hands on the wheel and you have a destination in mind, you're gonna get there. And it's the people, I think, unfortunately for them, maybe when they hit that, couple of potholes in the road, they just pull over or whatever it is, and they never get to their destination. And you just got to stay focused. You got to have a plan and make it happen.
To kind of put a bow on this, you even made another transition in that industry to the broadcasting desk, and that's something that you're still involved with to this day a little bit, correct?
Yeah. Yep. So at the tail end of Quicksilver, unfortunately, they were declining. They weren't hitting the numbers that they were. They were making a lot of corporate cuts. I was able to duck those cuts, probably a half a dozen times. Eventually got that call, on a Sunday, and they said, "Hey, unfortunately, we're gonna have to, make some changes. We're gonna call you into the office on Monday." So I went out, went through that process. They took care of me really well on the way out, which gave me time to find my feet. And I was already doing some broadcasts as one of my responsibilities with Quicksilver at our big surf competitions. We would do these live broadcasts. And so eventually they were making a change from the ASP to the WSL, which is now the World Surf League. So it'd be the equivalent of the FLW making the change to Major League Fishing. And so at that time they were, putting together a team for their broadcast. I put my name in the hat, was selected, and was able to do that for 6 years, traveling some of the best venues, in the world, and then doing live broadcast, and I played, roles from, that's there on the desk where I was actually a host or the anchor. And then, excuse me, I would also do beach commentary where you're, down there roaming and trying to bring behind the scenes insight. Kelly Slater just broke a fin. You at home watching don't know that. I'm going to go find out, get that board that was just broken, let you know on the inside, right when he kicked out, there's a rock right here. It broke his fin out. He's now on a backup board. There's a little bit of a change. Keep an eye on that. Let's see how it plays out for the next 8 minutes in this heat now that he's on a backup board. And so for me, it was really exciting. I still enjoy doing it. But, always trying to find, okay, if I'm sitting at home watching this event, what do I want to know if I'm there live? And I needed to go find that stuff behind the scenes to bring it to the viewer at home to have them go, wow, that's awesome, man. Let's see how this thing unfolds now,
That's good stuff. Are you really best friends with Kelly Slater?
No, I used to, stay at his house a lot when we were kids. Really? We still keep in touch. He's actually in Hawaii right now with his girl. But yeah, we spent a lot of time together growing up over the years, and he's a great dude, and obviously the best ever.
Give him an equivalent in the fishing world.
Kevin Van Dam or Jacob Wheeler at this point.
Yeah, is he as chill and intense as he comes across in every documentary and stuff that I've seen him?
He is. He's, and the interesting thing is too, Matt, sorry, but we came from very similar backgrounds, so I think that's where we were able to relate on a lot of levels. But yeah, he is very chill, and, it's not anything quite like the top NFL guys or the NBA guys, but, I traveled with him many years, and you'd be in the middle of nowhere in Brazil on this, probably, I don't know, 200 miles from the coast or something on a freeway, and a car would pull up next to you, beeping the horn, Kelly, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? So, surfing in our country is big, but in Brazil and Australia, it's major. You know what I mean?
Probably a lot of BTL listeners not super in depth into the surf. Is there one documentary series show or whatever, if they listen to this show and kind of want to get a feel for what it's all about, that they could go watch on Netflix or HBO? Because I was thinking the 100-foot wave that I watched on HBO. I've watched a bunch of the surfing stuff, but is there one that you'd recommend?
Yeah, that's actually one that I haven't had a chance to see, but I'm very familiar with it. Apple's got something going on too right now that's behind the scenes from the WSL. I won't remember the title, but yeah, Apple's got something going on right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Want to talk about when we come back from the final break, as long as you're good to go. This has been an awesome show. Like I said, I was super pumped to talk about it. I wasn't sure exactly where it was going to go. But I want to talk about your current guiding. I've had a couple of people on the instant feedback say you had a mega sack yesterday. I want to maybe get into that little Valentine's Day mega sack. And then if people want to get in touch with you, how they can do that, how they can get on the water with you. You good for another segment?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, Matt.
All right, BTL on a Wednesday with Todd Kline. We'll be back right after this.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out. I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Get that beast right there.
Welcome back. BTL on a Wednesday. I'm looking at the instant feedbacks. Clay says, the BTL awards weren't biased at all. You roll back-to-back Michael Neal commercials. Maybe Michael Neal was in those commercials because we did consider that he was the BTL Angler of the Year. Do you ever think about that in reverse? Clay keeps me on my toes, Todd. Clay likes to look into everything. You know what I mean? Are there those fans in the surfing community that are like, oh yeah, well that guy stole that guy's wave, or he's got something he's doing. So Clay's on top of things in the instant feedback, Todd.
Clay needs a hug.
No, I think that's just Clay, man. I like it. We've grown accustomed to it. It's part of the show.
Sounds like you've got, maybe we had some Clays too, but actually, to your point, we would actually get sometimes some guys that were so passionate about the sport that they would give us really good intel or stats that they had acquired over the years. And, so you'd be live in a broadcast and going through some things, and all of a sudden you'd get a message, you look, and you're like, hey, thanks a lot, Clay. And Clay has let us know that, Matt won back-to-back in, 19, whatever, you're like, right on,
Dude, KVD just retires. I get up for the show. Was that yesterday or the day before? Whatever that was.
Yesterday.
Okay, yesterday. I wake up, I've got my routine, got the studio in the house, get the coffee, everything. And I look at my Instagram and I've got a DM from someone that I don't know. I got like 230 followers. Everything's fine. It just says this should lead the show this morning. And I click on it. It's I haven't told this in full. It's KVD's retirement announcement. It's the announcement. It's got 18 views. I'm like, I don't know who this is. I don't know where it came from. I make a couple calls to, one of his sponsors, to someone from it, and they're like, heck are you talking about? There's nothing out there. So you go to YouTube and there's nothing out there. Then I look back and it's an unlisted video. So I'm sitting there going, well, that's a BTL listener. How the heck did they get it? Then how did I get it? And now I'm sitting there going, well, what do I do with it? So obviously I said, I'm eating this. I said, I'm sitting on it. I said, I'm not breaking the KVD retirement news on the show because it's not the right thing to do. Then of course it goes live at 10. I guess that kind of pushed it forward based on some calls that people made and found out about it. And then it went live at 10 and then we were able to cover it. But that's case in point of what you were just talking about. Like there's a lot of people out there with a lot of little tidbits.
Well, that's it's awesome when you get those things from like breaking news, ESPN, Adam Schefter, and it's like, no way, Brady's what, and it's like, it's pretty cool how people, some of it's personal relationships, some of it, who knows how they get it,
Surfing world or professional bass fishing world bigger? Got to be surfing, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I don't know. There was a lot more money in the industry in surfing years ago. You talked about it earlier, Matt, when you wore Quicksilver all the time, when you were nowhere near a coast. And that was when Quicksilver was in its heyday. And I feel like people during those years were more brand loyal, whereas now it's, it becomes, if you like it, you like it. Whereas back then, I think people were really into brand loyalty, and that's where they were able to capitalize. I don't know. So I got a little sidetracked there. That's a good question. Surfing or fishing, what's bigger? I'm gonna say surfing. I'm gonna say surfing for sure because, like we talked about earlier in the show, Australia especially and Brazil. I mean, it's as big as the NFL is.
Oh yeah, it would have to be bigger. So on the top level, then. You throw these stats around. Let's combine the Elite Series and the BPT. So you've got let's just combine all that. Let's say you got 40 guys making 6 figures a year in sponsorship. Is it like, listen, you could say there's 10, you could say there's 100. I don't know. But let's say there's 40. Let's say a quarter of the field, right? Is that the same in surfing too? I mean, are guys doing big sponsorships like that, or is it just the top of the top of the top that are doing the big deals and the rest are kind of journeymen trying to survive?
So again, going back years ago, there was more money involved. There was quite a few guys that had, multi-million-dollar contracts. And then even the guys that I'll say were the B and C grade guys competing, there was guys that were making, plenty of 6-figure deals. Mm-hmm. But you still on occasion, and I think we see it in our world coming back to fishing, you got guys that are competing, they're winning, they're unbelievable anglers, but they don't want to engage in social media. They don't want to, they don't want to do a podcast, when a camera's on and a microphone's in front of them, whether they want to or don't want to, you're not going to get much out of them. And some guys are probably fine with that. They just want to compete. But those are the individuals that could be, making a very good living and they're actually going check to check from tournament to tournament. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Would you consider yourself full-time in the industry now?
I mean, I make a living fishing.
Yeah. Guiding.
So, well, I do, so fortunately for me, I've got great support from my sponsors. I do, because I still have that marketing background, finishing up as a marketing director at Quicksilver for 16 years. I help Igloo out with, some consulting in the fishing/marine industry. I also help a company called Electric who make unbelievable polarized sunglasses that came from the action sports world, but now is making a push into that fishing world because, there's been so many people that have come along that, know them for their goggles, know them for their glasses from a lifestyle perspective, didn't realize just how good their polarization was on the water. And so starting to see, an uptick in their business model as far as, going into the fishing world. And then, I'm a full-time guide, own and operate my own business. And the combination of all of it keeps the dream alive.
And you just you've caught a mega sack yesterday?
Yeah. So yesterday was, I've cracked, I think maybe 30 once. Many years ago out here, I've had plenty of bags in the 20s, but yesterday was just actually 2 days ago. It was the day before. So yeah, it would have been
13.
Today's Wednesday. So yeah, on Monday, I went solo, was the first guy down there at the lake. It rained that morning, a little bit of a drizzle when I got there. Launched, nobody there yet. Ran to my spot, got there, shad coming out of the water, fish busting them, and just start
Planet Earth. We call those days Planet Earth days. Have you seen the documentary Planet Earth?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those National Geographic live moments, right? And, again, nobody around. So I start just kind of circulating through baits, catching fish. And at one point, even, for us, it's early to be throwing topwater. I start whacking them on a topwater bait. And it's fun. I'm catching 2-3 pounders. And then I use my active target, start kind of looking around. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh. And then you see this mother load of fish, sitting on these different structures there, outside of where I'm fishing. I reach in the locker, grab a different rig out, fire out there. And Matt, for like 2 hours, it was absolutely mind blowing. Whether you were getting bit or not, something was happening on the end, right?
That's awesome.
The first time I actually lean into one, I'm like, oh gosh. And I get this thing up and it's over 10 pounds and I net it, put it in the well. And I'm just like, what's going on here? Long story short, this was like a good 2-hour process. But when I actually got onto the better fish, it was probably a 1-hour process. And when all said and done, I started putting a few on the scale. I wanted to keep 4 in the well to get that, Christmas card photo.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was done, 36.53. That was my best 5 ever.
I guess after you tell a story like that, it would be a good time to throw up the guide page. So there it is.
Yeah, that's not a 36.53, but that was another fun day at Lake Paris.
Yeah. You do a number of different lakes around there. If people are interested, want to get on the boat with you out in Southern California.
Yeah. So when people call and ask, hey, where do you guide at? I get a lot of locals. I get a lot of, out of state and even out of country who are coming to town. The cool thing is for me, you've got major cities like San Diego, Los Angeles, Orange County, where people are coming to town, whether it be for seminars, vacation, what have you. And I tell them, the furthest north that I'll guide is Lake Paris. And then the furthest south that I'll guide is Lower Otay, which is basically the border. And because I live out by the beach in San Clemente, they're all about an hour and 15 from my house. So it doesn't matter to me where you want to go. Also, if they are open to it, what I generally do for most of my guide trips is I will, take $100 deposit, lock a date in that I've got available and works for them. And then I call them the day prior and say, hey, Johnny, I recommend we go to Lake X. That's what's fishing best right now. And then we go down there. Hopefully I can teach them a couple of techniques that they can go and employ when they get back to their body of water. And more importantly, just a great experience, have fun, learn a new body of water and catch some fish. And it's cool, because most of the people I fish with, Matt, they're great people. Once in a while you get that one guy and it's like you keep looking at your watch, when it's over. But you get a lot of father-son, a lot of father-daughters. Sometimes single women just want to go fish. It's not for everybody, but I also think, I mentioned it earlier, co-angling and now as a guide, it teaches me different things in my mind through those different challenging moments that I can employ or apply to a tournament. More importantly, it's time on the water, and whether 90% of the time I'm not fishing with these clients. I'm watching intimately what they're doing, making sure the cadence right, making sure they're getting the best cast that they can. And then I'm constantly looking at the Lowrance electronics. And so all of that, even though I'm not fishing, is making me a better angler as well, which is awesome.
That's really cool. I was showing your website while you were talking, toddklinefishing.com, Kline, not like Gary, not like anyone else, Kline fishing.com. How many freaking magazine covers do you have? There's like 3 pages of just you on the cover of Western magazines.
That's one thing, Matt. Hopefully, I'm gonna stalk you because I'm intrigued by you as an individual, and I think I can learn from you on some things. And hopefully, one thing you'll learn from me is I am not going to be afraid to knock on doors. And the worst they can tell you is no. And so, anytime I've got an opportunity, I feel like, I just had a good day on the water. I've got some good imagery, whatever it is, I'm going to reach out and, try and push to get a cover, try and push to get an article, try and help represent my sponsors that, support me. And, that's like anything in life. You have to want to go get it. And that's my mindset is, I'm going to always be knocking on doors, and they might not all open, but that one that does is going to be an opportunity for me and my sponsors that I represent.
But seriously, you're over 8.
There might be more on the way.
I see California Sportsman. I see Western Outdoor News. You've got an in at California Sportsman.
Those guys, it's actually really cool. It's been years now, but they reached out to me and they're like, we're intrigued by the lifestyle that you have, what you do. It's entertaining. Would you be open to writing a monthly column for us? And I said, by all means, yes. So monthly I submit imagery to them, and then they'll select the ones that they feel fit best within that article. And it's, hopefully it's a win for them. It's definitely a win for me. And I keep that in mind throughout the month that I'm, on my road trips, my guide trips, what have you, and just making sure when you see that beautiful sunrise, when you see somebody catch a giant fish, whatever it is, something that you think you might enjoy seeing when you're opening up that magazine, I go ahead and get that shot.
All right, that's good stuff. Anything else that we didn't cover? I feel like we covered a lot of we really covered a lot of stuff, and I was afraid we were going to have to jump back and forth because there are so many different avenues, but I felt like it was fairly seamless.
Yeah, Matt, I really appreciate it, buddy. I know I was a little bit of a yard sale this morning. I was 1 hour off on my timing. Thank God you did text me, because I heard the chime and I looked over and I'm like, oh gosh, I need to go. I've got 10 minutes before I'm live. So pulled the truck out of the garage, made a cup of coffee, threw a hoodie on, and here I am.
Yeah, it looks up. You're awake. So I've got I do this a lot. I mean, we've done literally thousands of live shows. But you got to have your backup guys, right? So I had not established a backup guy for 2023 yet. Not like a guy who's like, hey, you're the B plan, but hey, if something happens or there's a miscommunication, I can call you, you can jump on and we could do a show. So I established my backup as Andrew Upshaw this morning. I was like, hey man, I texted Kline. I said, we're supposed to be live in 10 minutes, but he's got his notifications on silent. I said, I talked to him yesterday. I said, but I didn't I just kept saying 8:30 Central. I didn't specifically say 6:30 West Coast time. He's like, yeah, I got you, man. I'll be your guy. So for whatever reason, I was thinking it was 7:30, but again, hey, thank you so much, dude. Intrigued by you as an individual, what you're doing out there. Keep up the good work, and no doubt you're going to have continued success. And I'll be on the sidelines watching it unfold. So keep up the good work, dude. Thank you, Todd. Have a good morning. Yes, sir. Thank you. Oh, he hit us with the surf deal at the end. I wanted to ask him what that meant. I literally had that in the notes. What does the little surf thing mean? Because it must be Hawaii thing because I see Matty Wong do it all the time on the Elite Series that he's that. So we'll just have to save that for next time. All right. We ran through everything. We covered everything we needed to. Tomorrow, day 4, number 103 with Frank Scalish. And then we are in the thick of things in the tournament season. So next week, some guys who have capitalized and caught fish will be on the show. Not exactly sure who, because BPT still going on. Elite Series will have just concluded and a lot of different stuff. But massive thanks to Todd Kline, getting up early, taking care of business. On the water and off the water. I'm really intrigued with. So this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow for day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. See ya.